This is the Fundamental Escape Podcast with today's guest host, Rachel Edge. I'm David Werba, and this is episode 17. So today we have Scott Harrison on the show, who's the CEO and founder of Charity Water. So Rachel, listening back to your discussion with Scott, what were some of the key points that you'd like to review?
Well, I would absolutely have to say that his story is really a story of humanity. You know, his story, he's a humanitarian. His story is not just a God story. It's a story of really people helping people. And somewhere along the way, he decided to start this awesome charity. And it was amazing to speak to him because he's just a cool guy.
Yeah, it seemed like you were kind of searching for that seminal moment in his life where he shifted his mindset from being a nightclub promoter to dedicating his life to charity.
I would say that really what he was searching for, maybe he found it at that moment when he was at the football field and saw all these people in need. But not just that, waking up drunk every day for a certain amount of time really has to do you in. And really, it was amazing to me to realize that you could go to such extremes.
Yeah, I'd also like to point out that Scott is a Christian, but Charity Water is not a religious organization. And he states that many people of no faith donate and support the cause as well. And finally, Scott made it clear that he actually gives 100% of donations to the needy, which is not the case in most charities. So I recently saw an infographic that showed some really high salaries from some of the CEOs that run the charities, like sometimes in excess of $1 million per year. And on top of that, some charities average less than 10 cents out of every dollar that they get actually goes to charity, which is disappointing to hear. So I would encourage people to do a little research before you donate to really see how the money is going out to the needy. But now let's get to the podcast with Scott Harrison.
So happy to have you, Scott. Tell us a little bit about Charity Water and why it got started. I mean, what fuels you to do what you do? Why the change of heart at 31?
Well, the change of heart was actually at 28, I guess. I had spent 10 years in New York City living as a very decadent nightclub promoter, and just realized, had a crisis of faith, had a crisis of conscience, and realized that I was the worst person that I knew. And did some soul searching and wound up making a pretty radical change, selling all my possessions to go volunteer on a humanitarian mission for 1 year. And I'd actually had a difficult time doing that. I'd applied to many humanitarian organizations only to be denied because nightclub promoters don't easily fit into humanitarian organizations. But thankfully, one org took me on, and I had to go to a country called Liberia right after the war ended. And I saw extreme poverty for the first time, and I saw the need for clean water. And just couldn't believe that kids were dying of bad water drinking from swamps while
Wow.
I had been selling $10 bottles of, Pellegrino water in nightclubs to people who weren't even drinking them. So came back and started Charity Water with a very simple belief that everyone on this planet, no matter where they were born, should have their most basic need for life met. They need clean water. And we've been working for the last 9 years towards that end.
Absolutely. That's so awesome that you just started, you realized you took a step back and said, okay, where am I in my life and what am I doing? What started it for you? I mean, was there a moment in time where you can look back and say, maybe somebody threw out their water or something like that, and you just said, I have to start helping people who need to be helped?
I think when you see radical extreme poverty for the first time, it deeply moves anyone. And I was fortunate that it wasn't a week or too long trip, right? Parachute into Africa, see poor people, and then go back to to normal life. I was there for a year and a half, right? It was a 2-year term of service, and really living with these problems every day and living with the solutions, just, it was kind of a hard change. I mean, yes, my third day on the humanitarian mission, I was standing outside of a football stadium at 5:30 in the morning, and I was standing alongside 5,000 people sick who had come with the hopes of seeing a doctor in a country where there was very little access to health care, to medical care. And the horrible thing about that day was there were only 1,500 surgery slots. We were only able to help 1,500 people, and over 5,000 had come with hope. So I remember just weeping uncontrollably, realizing that so many people would be sent home because we didn't have enough doctors. We didn't have enough resources.
Wow. And how can you come, I mean, how can you come back to the United States after that and then just see what we see every day, just such waste? I mean, how does that impact you from living there to have lived over a year in a country that people didn't have clean water now?
I guess I look at the affluence of this country really as opportunity, and we've been able to raise now over $185 million to help about 17,000 villages get clean water. So rather than running around wagging my finger here at people and telling them what they shouldn't be buying, we've really been running around saying, hey, there's this great opportunity to use your time and your talent and your money to radically impact the lives of people, to give them their most basic needs, to help them with health and education and prosperity through clean drinking water. And then we do a pretty good job at showing people their impact and actually connecting them to these water projects that they've made possible.
Right. I think that's really interesting, the way you can show someone after they have contributed. So when someone text messages a certain, what is it? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, we have a pretty unique business model at the charity where from day one, 100% of all donations, so every single dollar given by the public goes directly to fund these water projects. The overhead, the staff, the flights, the office is all paid for separately by a very small group of donors, private donors, about 100 people that make it all possible. So we're able to track dollars with integrity. We're able to show people what we've done with their money. And because we're building physical water projects, we're drilling wells, we're building rainwater harvesting systems, we're protecting mountain springs, we're building biosand filters. We're able to show the donors what we've done in a really transparent way. And for us, that's looked like putting every single water project from day one up on Google Maps, up on Google Earth, so people can actually see satellite images of the projects.
That's awesome, because I think a lot of people in the United States, they're hesitant to give. Even like after the grocery store, they ask, would you like to give to XYZ? Or even getting a cookie, they would say, do you want to give to the American Heart Association? We always question how much of our money actually goes to helping other people. So I think that that's really important. You established that there was a certain fear associated with it, and you kind of combat that, right?
Yeah, and we have realized that was the overhead aversion that people had. That was one of the main reasons they were not giving to charity. They weren't sure where their money would go, and that was really one of the reasons for this new business model. We wanted to be able to definitively answer the same way every time, every single penny.
Wow, yeah. So tell us about your 31st birthday, because I read a little bit about it, that you just you raised, $15,000 in one night for your birthday, and people can do that going forward, right? So if it's my birthday coming up, then I can say I'm going to have this fun, and instead of you guys giving me gifts, we can just get clean water for other countries. Explain what that is.
Yeah, so launched a birthday campaign where it said, look, I have everything I need. I mean, certainly not wealthy. I'm on a nonprofit salary now for almost a decade, but I have my basic needs met. There's a roof over my head. I don't go hungry. There's clean water that comes out of taps in the country that I've been born into, and I don't need any birthday gifts. I don't need a gift card. I don't need a wallet. I don't need a pair of socks. What if I could use my birthday to provide others with the most basic need? What if I could use my birthday to help the 663 million people out there without clean water? So I kind of came up with this idea of asking for my age in dollars. And you mentioned my 31st. That was actually a party where 700 people came and dropped $20. It was my 32nd that I took online. And I asked everybody I knew whether they would consider just donating my age in dollars. $32 for my 32nd birthday. It worked. I wound up raising $59,000. And I flew to Kenya and we drilled a well via satellite so people could see where their money had gone. But then this idea started spreading. And a 7-year-old kid in Austin, Texas, started knocking on doors, asking for $7 donations. He had given up his birthday. And he wound up raising $22,000. Wow. And it just began to spread. We had 89-year-olds give up their birthday, 55-year-olds, 6-year-olds give up their birthday. The movement now of birthdays and people doing other kind of crazy things, people swimming, people doing so many different, bringing the best of their passion and creativity to this issue. Swimming, selling lemonade, biking, writing haikus for charity water, faith communities, etc. This community of about 30,000 people now have raised over $40 million. And the exciting thing is that the average person who donates a birthday raises $1,000. And I know a lot of people can't write $1,000 check to charity, but just by getting their friends and family to donate their age in dollars, they wind up with over $1,000 of impact.
Wow, that's exciting because you don't hear about things like that as much. But too, though, I think, Scott, one thing I wanted to ask you, because I attend a church locally in Clear Lake. I'm in Clear Lake, Texas, that has kind of changed the way they do charity. And instead of throwing money at certain organizations, or not even organizations, just in communities that are in poverty, because of books like Toxic Charity and When Helping Hurts, there's this notion that the poor keep establishing themselves being poor when people keep throwing money at them. So, how does Charity Water work to change lives by actually teaching a man to fish rather than like just feeding him for a day or opening a water
Sure.
well? Yeah. Can you explain maybe the holistic approach to what you do?
Yeah, and I think that's sometimes a little that model or argument works, better for some issues than others. Let me give you a typical scenario where Charity Water would work. We'd be working in a village in Ethiopia, remote village, about 250 people living there, all living off the land. And you hear about this dollar a day. Let's say people here would be living on 50 cents a day. So you try to imagine someone making about $100 a year. The water point that's required for that village would cost about $10,000. So there is no, and the equipment to drill that well that is going to give the entire village of a couple hundred people clean water is about $1.3 million of equipment. So there is no teaching this community to go up and save $1 million for a rig or the $10,000 for the capital cost of the well. However, what we do see and what is really important in the success of these projects is the community contributing what they can, which is the labor, which is the sometimes sharing the land. Sometimes the land which is best suited for the well will be donated by a member back into the corpus. What the community can do is set up a water committee and send different representatives to form a committee of 8 or 10 to look after the ongoing maintenance of this water pump. And I think what's really important to us is that the work is led by locals. So there are not people from Charity Water ever digging wells. We employ about 1,600 people around the world through a network of local partners. So there are 400 people in Ethiopia that are all Ethiopians, no Americans there, no Australians there, no Canadians there,
Gotcha. Yeah.
no Europeans there. There are 400 Ethiopians who are leading their own people forward. They are serving their own communities, and then they're engaged in those local communities to provide what they can in the labor, and then training them in the ongoing maintenance of those programs. So I think that's absolutely crucial to our business model. We've seen some well-intentioned people fly over there, drill wells in all the wrong places, not really know what they're doing. And then, of course, when that well fails, the community says, well, those nice white people are going to come back and and fix it, and of course they won't.
And yeah, so I think that's great that you do employ the locals in order to establish that, they have jobs. So they're the ones who are actually building the wells.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you said, I heard you say business model. You are a 501c3, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. But,
we just
every
we
charity.
run it like a business. We
Yes.
don't use, there haven't been other charities that we've really aspired to be like. I think we're most excited about the Nikes of the world, the Apples of the world, these, these transformational brands that have captured the hearts and minds of people, and maybe less some of the bigger established charities that many people don't even know what they do anymore. So we very much look at it as a business. Yes, we 100% of all the money goes straight to the field. We of course are a 501c3 that's audited and have the highest accreditation from every watchdog group that's looked at us in 9 years. But we really think about it like we're running a business.
Yeah, and I think that's really smart. So let's talk a little bit about the way you live, Scott, because I know you said you used to be in this different kind of situation where you worked in a nightclub. It was this high kind of life. Like, what did that feel like to transition from? I mean, what kind of emotions does someone go through when they start to live humbly and live simply? I mean, what does that mean for you to change how you live and as a person?
I think perhaps the extreme was easier for me. I mean, I have a pretty I have a faith story. I grew up in the church, active in just a Christian church, taking care of a mother who was an invalid, and really playing by the rules. And then this 10-year radical rebellion was a departure from the faith and the morality of my childhood. If anything was unnatural, it was probably running around, drinking every night, doing cocaine, and hanging out at strip clubs. I mean, it was really, my story follows far too closely the story of the prodigal son. Thankfully, 10 years of squandering my inheritance, I guess you could say, I was given this radical chance to come home and to really make my life look exactly the opposite. So for me, that meant having to quit all those advices and never gamble again, and never touch coke again, and never look at porn again, and basically never have another cigarette as long as I live. So I had to go all in the giving up of so many of these vices. But in a way, it was incredibly freeing, and being able to do that in Liberia, West Africa, in Benin, West Africa, surrounded by these amazing Christian humanitarian surgeons, I think made it a little easier for me.
Well, it sounds like it was almost like a detox from you transitioning and going on this mission was almost like a detox, probably more traumatic than some of the rehab clinics we have in the United States.
Yeah.
Because it just was a shock in the face that there is so much poverty in the world, and we're able to do something about it, and we just kind of sit back, and it makes me feel like I need to be doing something right now.
Well, you can. When's your next birthday?
Next year. So yeah,
All right.
It's funny because when you started this whole journey was the same age. I'm 28 now. And yeah, I think that that's amazing what you've been doing with your life. It's interesting to me though that you said you went on this 10-year rebellion, and I mean, did you learn anything within that 10 years, or was it just, do you look back and say, man, I'm glad I had these experiences? Or did you feel like you just fell away from grace? What was it about your spiritual journey within that time where you just kind of went off? What did you learn?
Well, I think I learned some skills that have been useful in building Charity Water. I mean, I was a promoter, so I was promoting nightclubs. Come into the club, get past the velvet rope, sit at the table with the pretty guys and pretty girls, and your life has meaning. And to be good at this, we would have to, get hundreds of people into the club to spend lots of money. I mean, that was what success looked like. I think being able to, to get better at that, at kind of spinning up that story, at spinning up the mystery and the intrigue, and moving people towards action. In that case, spending lots of money on alcohol. I did learn something over 10 years, and I think being able to take that same skill, the excitement and the enthusiasm of promoting something, but then switching it to promote something completely redemptive, something that benefits others, something as simple as clean water for the people that have the greatest needs on earth. And even marketing to the same audience was really exciting. So almost turning it on its head. Instead of trying to sell people $20 cocktails, I was trying to get them to make donations, to help one person get access to clean water, or an entire village, or a series of villages. So some of the first water projects we sold were to nightclubs and nightclub owners.
Wow, that's so ironic. And I think you learned to be a marketer though too. It sounds like that you're really good at marketing and you knew how to use that for something good.
I think so. Yeah. And it's been a lot of fun trying to get people excited about this vision of a world where no one drinks dirty water.
Wow. So is that your mission? And what is the mission statement of Charity Water?
So Charity Water is bringing clean and safe drinking water to people in need around the world, very simply. And we've done it in 24 different countries, and we're helping over 2,000 people every single day of the year get clean water. But there are a lot of people out there. So we just believe in a world where everyone has clean water to drink, and we're 663 million people short of our vision of that world, and a lot of work left to do.
Yeah, wow. So what advice would you give to somebody who really feels like they're not living out their purpose, or maybe they're kind of stuck in this in between with spiritual journey? What would you give to someone who feels that they're not in a place where they can feel comfortable laying their head at night? They're just kind of in a dilemma with maybe they're off in their 10-year walk, or maybe they just don't know what to do with the rest of their life. How did you figure that? Wasn't an experience, it just kind of came at you. So what kind of advice would you give to someone?
I think changing the context was really important for me. I don't know that I could have done what I did for a living and had a radical life shift. I mean, going to clubs every night, the club at 12 and coming home at 5, or going to after hours until noon. I really needed to break out of that lifestyle. And living on a hospital ship in the country with no electricity, running water, or sewage, or mail was certainly the extreme of that. But I think for me, it was changing the unhealthy environment, which then really opened my eyes to many other opportunities. I mean, I spent time with people with leprosy. I learned about cataract surgery. I learned about HIV/AIDS. I learned about malaria. And then I came across a thing that just stuck in my gut, which was this issue of dirty water. And I think, someone else could have had the exact same experience, not have resonated as deeply with the water, but maybe one of the other issues. So I think it's really encouraging people to kind of look at the world and say, what's not right with the world? For some, it might be our issue. People need clean water. I mean, it's so basic. Others, it might be justice issues, or sex trafficking, or hunger issues, or homeless issues. And then I would say, go and attack that. Whether it's with your time or your money, whether it's starting an organization, whether it's joining an organization, whether it's raising money for an organization. What is that kind of holy discontent that thing that just nags at you that says all is not right with the world, and I can do something about this.
Right, yeah. So it sounds like you met a lot of people. You did a lot of things like with people with leprosy and stuff like that. I mean, I've never even been within 50 feet of somebody who who had some kind of disease like that, and I know too that you've probably had people that inspired you along the way. Can you explain, maybe share a story with us about somebody who really inspired you?
I think Gary Parker really inspired me. Gary Parker was the plastic surgeon on this Mercy ship, this big hospital ship. And he was from California. He'd volunteered for a couple months of duty, and he stayed now over 30 years. Really dedicated his entire life, given up the money, given up the nice Mercedes that he could be driving, given up the vacations to use his skill in the service of others, in the service of people who can never pay him back. Some, who can't even thank him in his own language. And the humility that Gary exhibits, the tenacity, the just sheer work ethic was really, really inspiring. I'm not a surgeon, but I was able to go and find a way to make my impact.
Right. So it sounds like too your spiritual journey is really just living out your purpose. Do you feel like you're doing that now?
I do. I do. I mean, it's a pretty exciting thing to be able to get up and woo people here who have an opportunity just because of the affluence and the influence that they were born into, to radically change the lives of people, thousands of miles away, and then to make that connection, and then to show them their impact and build this virtuous cycle. Is a really exciting thing to be able to do. And, I get to travel a lot. I've been to Ethiopia 25 or 26 times now. And I've seen so many lives changed. I've seen the impact. I've seen people weeping with gratitude, saying that the clean water has transformed their village, has taken an 8-hour walk down to an 8-minute walk. And it's just an exciting thing to be able to do.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it sounds like too, though, that it's not just about doing it for just charity's sake, that you don't feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, that maybe you don't feel called to do it just because God says to feed others, to feed other spirits, to teach men to fish. And it's not just that. It sounds like that it's just this deep desire to really help other people.
I think that's right, and I am a Christian. I mean, the great thing about this job is I get to live out my faith in the job, but the organization is not a religious organization. We have supporters of very, very diverse faiths, many supporters of no faith at all. So, my version of heaven. I believe no one is drinking dirty water. I believe no woman is watching their child die of diarrhea. I believe no woman is walking 8 hours in the hot sun with 40 pounds of dirty water on her back, dreading the fact that it might kill her daughter that night.
Yeah, that sounds like hell to me.
But you don't need to believe what I believe, or you don't need to do what I do on Sunday to contribute to the organization. And in fact, most people don't. So I've really wanted this to be an inclusive movement. Because that may motivate me and my life of service, but it shouldn't need to motivate you to have you participate in the organization and believe that people need clean water.
Yeah, I think that's your story is just an amazing story, Scott. I'm so happy to speak to you today, and thanks for being on the show.
Of course, thanks so much for having me.